Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Right now, in the first seconds you're here. Have you ever felt a real déjà vu, not the casual kind, but the kind that makes your stomach drop, like you've lived this exact moment before? Have you noticed impossible synchronicities stacking too neatly to dismiss? Numbers repeating, names appearing, conversations echoing thoughts you never said out loud. Have you felt reality glitch, even briefly? Time stretching, compressing, skipping, like the clock didn't just tick forward but slid. If you've experienced any of that, hear this clearly. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not too spiritual or too analytical. You're perceiving something most people learn to ignore. And if your chest tightened when I said that, if your breathing changed just a little, stay with me. This isn't for everyone, but it might be for you. Here's the part that never gets said out loud. When people talk about spiritual awakening, they describe light, clarity, peace. That's not how it starts. It starts with erasure. Jobs vanish. Relationships dissolve. Identities you spent years building suddenly feel hollow. Not slowly, not logically. Pieces of your life are just gone. And what scares you isn't the loss. It's the strange calm that follows, like something essential was removed, and in the silence, something else began to hum. Mainstream culture calls this burnout, midlife crisis, anxiety. But there's another way to look at it, one that physics has been circling for decades. In quantum consciousness research, collapse doesn't mean failure. It means a system reached a point where its current configuration could no longer hold information. When that happens, the system doesn't improve. It resets. That idea alone challenges everything we're taught about success, stability, and identity. And it's why this topic makes people uncomfortable. In 1935, when the observer effect first shattered assumptions about reality, it wasn't celebrated. It was resisted. Later experiments, repeated, refined, kept pointing to the same unsettling implication. Observation participates. Consciousness isn't passive. It interacts with the quantum field itself. Reality, at some level, responds. That's not mysticism. That's physics. And it's why certain papers were rejected again and again with notes like, too metaphysical, outside scope, insufficiently material. One proposal was turned away 14 times, not because the math failed, but because the implications were unacceptable. Here's where it gets personal. If you've felt isolated lately, like people don't quite get you anymore, it might not be a personality issue. It might be frequency. In systems theory, coherence matters. When two systems operate at incompatible frequencies, they create interference. Translation: you feel alone because you're operating differently. Not better, not worse. Different. Your subconscious mind knows this before your language does. It shows up as restlessness, as a pull toward quiet, as an urge to step back from the noise. You're not losing motivation. You're losing tolerance for a story that no longer fits. That's why the concept of vibration and frequency keeps appearing across disciplines, from neuroscience to meditation research. It's not metaphor, it's measurement. And here's the part that should unsettle you a little. If reality responds to observation, then what you attend to shapes what becomes real. Observer effect, reality creation, hidden reality. These aren't slogans, they're clues. If your life collapsed, it may not be because you failed to create. It may be because you were creating from outdated assumptions. I'm not here to resolve this for you. Not yet. I'm here to tell you that the erasure you experienced wasn't random, and it wasn't punishment. It was interruption, a forced pause, a clearing of bandwidth. If that idea bothers you, good. It should. Most people will click away now. They need certainty to survive. But if you're still here, it's because something in you recognizes this edge, this tension between science and spirit, between data and meaning. Stay with me. What comes next isn't comfortable. It's precise. And it might explain why the life you lost had to disappear before you could remember what you actually are. Don't scroll. Don't multitask. Don't treat this like background noise. If this video showed up right now, it's not random. It's because the pattern already broke. What you're about to hear only works if you stay with it until the end. Leave early, and later today something won't make sense, and you won't know why. So stay. Not because I'm asking. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. This isn't for everyone. But if you're still here, it already started. Society teaches you that collapse means failure. But in every complex system ever studied, collapse is the doorway to evolution. In biology, neurons prune connections to increase intelligence. In physics, stars must collapse to ignite fusion. In 1927, German physicist Werner Heisenberg published the uncertainty principle, proving that at the quantum level, reality cannot be fully measured without being disturbed. Observation changes outcome. That wasn't philosophy, it was math. Then in 1961, physicist Eugene Wigner pushed it further, showing that quantum states don't resolve until they are consciously observed. Let that sit. Reality waits for perception, which means the quantum field responds not to effort, but to awareness. If your life collapsed suddenly, it wasn't because you failed. It's because the observer you were could no longer sustain the vibration required to access the next state. That feeling you've had, déjà vu that feels physical, repeating numbers, time slipping or stretching, those aren't glitches. They're signs your subconscious mind is recalibrating to a different frequency. You're sensing parallel outcomes collapsing into one experienced path. In the famous double-slit experiment, particles behaved like waves until observed, then snapped into particles. Choice eliminated possibility. That's how reality creation works. Entanglement later proved distance doesn't matter. Particles remain connected across space instantly. Consciousness expansion follows the same rule. Nobel Prize winner Max Planck admitted, "I regard consciousness as fundamental." But that sentence is never emphasized in classrooms. Ask yourself why. If people understood that perception shapes energy, control would fail. If this resonates, don't explain it away. Comment with the moment your reality broke. Specific, detailed. Others will recognize themselves in it. And pay attention now, because this is where it gets stranger. Because this is where it gets stranger. In 1982, at the University of Paris-Sud, physicist Alain Aspect ran a refined Bell test experiment that shattered local reality. The result was clear and repeatable. Entangled particles changed states instantly, faster than light, without any physical signal. Distance didn't matter. Time didn't matter. The quantum field behaved as if space itself was irrelevant. Mainstream physics called it non-locality, but avoided the deeper implication. If information travels outside space-time, then consciousness is not produced by the brain. It interacts with reality from beyond it. This is why, during a spiritual awakening, your perception starts slipping between versions of events. You remember conversations differently. You sense outcomes before they happen. You experience déjà vu that feels emotional, not mental. That's not imagination. It's consciousness expansion colliding with identity lag. Your subconscious mind is still anchored to an old frequency, while awareness has already shifted. In quantum consciousness terms, you're momentarily existing in overlapping probability states. That friction feels like paranoia, anxiety, or dissociation, but it's not pathology. It's transition. In 2022, Nobel Prize winner Anton Zeilinger openly stated that reality is fundamentally information-based, not material. He admitted that observation and meaning are inseparable from physical outcome. Yet this is never taught in school because a population that understands observer effect and reality creation is impossible to condition. So if you've been seeing repeating numbers, waking at the same minute nightly, sensing a hidden reality beneath the visible one, you're not breaking down. You're tuning in. Comment with the exact moment confusion began for you. Details matter here. Others will recognize the pattern. And don't get comfortable yet, because here is where everything changes. And this is the part that was intentionally buried. In 1973, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet conducted experiments at the University of California, San Francisco, measuring brain activity before conscious decisions. The result was disturbing. The brain initiated action milliseconds before the person became aware of deciding. Mainstream interpretation said free will was an illusion, but Libet himself rejected that conclusion. He stated consciousness had a veto power over reality creation. Awareness wasn't late, it was supervisory. That changes everything, because if consciousness can override physical processes, then memory loss, identity collapse, and life erasure are not accidents. They are resets. When your frequency shifts, old timelines become incompatible. You don't just forget events, you forget authorship. That's why spiritual awakening feels like remembering something you never learned. You sense a hidden reality responding when you pay attention. Synchronicities increase. Choices feel heavier. The observer effect stops being abstract and becomes personal. In the quantum field, participation matters more than belief. Nobel Prize winner Erwin Schrödinger warned that consciousness cannot be accounted for in physical terms because it is fundamental. That line was softened in textbooks, removed from context, because a population that remembers authorship cannot be ruled. If you felt your old life dissolve while something quieter but stronger emerged, describe exactly what vanished and what replaced it. This isn't sharing for engagement, it's recognition. And stay with me, because this is where everything changes, because this is the moment everything converges. You've just walked through evidence, not belief, through physics, not fantasy, through patterns that quietly repeat in the quantum field, in perception, in your own body. From observer effect to entanglement, from frequency to vibration, every thread points to the same unsettling truth. Reality does not happen to you, it happens through you. Quantum consciousness was never a metaphor. It was always a mechanism. The discomfort you felt wasn't confusion. It was consciousness expansion outpacing identity. The strange calm after loss wasn't numbness. It was the subconscious mind releasing an obsolete frequency. What you called collapse was coherence forming underneath. That's why nothing feels the same. That's why silence feels charged. You're not broken. You're retuning. Here's the part most people never hear. If awareness collapses possibilities, then time isn't linear the way you were taught. Separation isn't absolute. And death, as defined culturally, cannot mean what institutions insist it means. Not if energy is conserved. Not if perception alters outcome. Not if the observer participates in reality creation. This is why this knowledge stayed fragmented. Mutes systems rely on predictable minds. But awakened perception introduces variance. And variance destroys control. That's not spirituality. That's systems theory. If your heart is racing right now, that's not anxiety. That's recognition. Your frequency is adjusting. You're feeling the quantum field respond because something inside you just realigned. You didn't gain power. You remembered it. And remembering is irreversible. You can't unsee this. Something shifted permanently, and the next few seconds matter more than you realize. So here's the ritual. Not for metrics, for alignment. Type "I am the observer" in the comments. Not as affirmation, but as declaration. Public intention collapses probability. It signals the subconscious mind. It strengthens the frequency of this space and attracts others who resonate. You're not alone. Thousands are waking simultaneously. This channel is the intersection point. What happens next depends on choice. Stay passive and the pattern will close. Or step forward and the hidden reality responds. Because scientists just discovered something that shatters everything we've discussed. Consciousness doesn't live in your brain. If you're still here, your subconscious already chose. Subscribe now, before your rational mind tries to explain this away. Share this with the one person who's been unusually quiet lately. You know exactly who. And comment, "I remember." Not for engagement, not for the algorithm, as a signal. Because once memory returns, it doesn't go back to sleep.